and bring it down on its head, situational irony. Nate? So it's the opposite of what who would expect. All right, so I could simply start off a sentence with something like, the reader is, if it's irony and it's situational, I'm what? Shocked, surprised. The reader is surprised that Mary, and Nate, you were describing Mary as someone who, like, what's an emotion she feels towards her husband? Okay. So the reader is surprised that Mary, who deeply loves her husband, or husband, would commit such an act. Simple sentence. It's a lengthier sentence, but it's still a simple sentence grammatically. The reader is surprised that Mary would commit such an act. I threw in the little phrase, the little description, who deeply loves her husband, to describe Mary, because that certainly helps explain why there is going to be irony with it. A common mistake at this point would be to move on to your next example. But there's two main things that we have to look for within our answers. We have to make sure we identify situational and dramatic. But what's the other thing that we have to also do with our examples of irony? We have to not just identify, but explain how this contributes to that tone. So one of the reasons, especially for this prompt, that I'd want to have two sentences. First sentence is going to explain why it's ironic, which we just did. The second sentence, in a compound sentence, I would want to explain how it contributes to the tone. I'll let you try that on your own. Write a sentence. How does this example contribute to the tone that we are writing about? For this particular prompt, or at least for this answer, which might be different from what you are doing, keep in mind it's a sinister tone. This is probably the most challenging sentence I think that you have to do, or at least that we have done so far. How does this contribute toward a sinister tone? If you need a sentence starter, I think you could go along with something like this. This ironic event contributes, and then you can go from there. See it okay, Tommy? Your grade, hopefully, after the quiz.
I don't know about that. I mean, I hope so.
All right, so what do we have? What can we do? This ironic event contributes. What are some options? Josh, Connor wrote a really good sentence before. How do you think he did with this one?
I think I did better with this one.
Oh, you did better. I was going to say, how do you think he did? But you like went right to yourself. I think I did well.
Connor's a smart guy. I think he's got a good one.
Who do you think is better, his or yours?
Probably his.
Okay. What do you got?
I said, mine's kind of long, but
It's a compound sentence.
I said, oh wait, it's compound.
Connor, yours is looking pretty good now.
I think, is that two independents or is that an independent?
That's two independents.
We can see. I said, this example contributes more to the sinister tone of the story.
Okay, so it contributes to, I'm going to keep ironic event just because I already have that.
This could work.
You said sinister tone of the story.
Yeah.
Okay.
And by adding a plot twist of Mary brutally killing her husband while also being madly in love with him.
You said brutally?
Brutally, yes. Killing her husband.
Brooding while also loving him.
While also being madly in love with him.
Okay. Is this a complex sentence?
Complex.
Is this a compound? I'm sorry, did I say complex? Is this a compound sentence? No.
No.
Okay.
There's no
It-
There's no
I'd have to
family.
work
Correct.
on that by.
Now, so you could go, this ironic event contributes to the sinister tone of the story. Instead of doing by, you could do something like comma, for it adds a plot twist. And remember, for is a fanboy. It's probably the one that least gets used. For is a substitution for because. Of brutally killing her husband while also being madly in love with him. I think you were saying, does she really brutally kill him?
Jack explained to me that.
Yeah, I would say it's a brutal killing. I mean, she's basically taking a club and beating him to death. It doesn't say that she hits him 20 times while he's on the floor or anything like that. Yeah, you could say that's like, I mean, it's death no matter what. It's murder. That's literally an overkill. But it's still a pretty brutal murder that would be taking place. Yeah. And Josh, we're giving you a little bit of a hard time here in the sense, did you do a compound sentence? No, you did not. Keep in mind, the simple compound complex thing, that's me making your life more difficult. That's not what's going on with Keystone, where there is no part of the rubric that says you must write a simple followed by a compound followed by a complex. However, by us doing a complex and then a simple and then a compound sentence all within this part, oops, this didn't highlight for me, from initially on down, what does it do? Well, it's not giving you bonus points, but if you were simply to write 3 sentences and they were 3 simple sentences, you're not going to have as much content with it. So the complex and the compound is forcing you to add content. Plus, if we go back to Josh was talking about, I used the word the in his first sentence. Boy, that just doesn't quite read as well. If you have, it's called syntactic fluency. If you have a variety of sentence structure, it makes it more readable. It comes across as being more sophisticated. It compares better than to Dahl uses situational irony. It was ironic because husband killed or wife killed the husband. It was bad. Another example would be, this is a more sophisticated analysis that's taken place. Josh, I have no problems with the content of this. The main thing that he does, it would be 2, he identifies the fact that it's sinister. What's so good about him using the term brutal? If it's a brutal killing, then it's going to be a sinister tone that's taking place. He also used the phrase plot twist. Plot twist insinuates that there is
Plot twist.
irony. It's the opposite. It's something unexpected, which is what you end up having at this point. So yeah, good example. Works well. So we have an R and an A. We've restated, we've answered, we've cited. Now we did a 2-sentence explanation. What do we have to do?
Do it again.
Do what?
Cite.
So we go back to doing another cite and another explain. We don't have to restate, but we have to do now another cite and another explain. The good thing is you get back into the habit of it. Now, Jack picked up the first step. He got his book because we got to open up. We got to find a new example. So at this point, you can either locate an example of dramatic irony, or you could find another example of situational, but you would know at some point that dramatic is going to have to take place. So you want to find another example of irony that would be contributing to the sinister tone, or if you're going with a different tone, bless you, for your own essay, that's perfectly fine as well. Come on. There we go. 379 is when the story started. Now, you want to make sure, and this isn't going to be a problem based on the first example we went with, you do want to make sure that your examples go in chronological order. So, for example, you don't want your next one to be when the police are eating the leg of lamb at the end of the story, because then your third example is going to be completely out of order at this point. folks are at least aware what your next example would ultimately be. Logan was asking question. He is doing where Mary's going to be preparing the dinner. And the idea is we're going to go with dramatic irony. Remember, dramatic irony by definition is when the reader knows something that a character does not. An example of irony that I could see a person using is when Mary is sitting down on her bed and she's kind of rehearsing what it is that she's going to say. That wouldn't count, though, as dramatic irony because you don't have another character present. But if you went where she's practiced what she's going to say to Sam, but if she's going to Sam, the grocer, to purchase the items in order to prepare this dinner for Patrick, that's certainly going to be dramatic irony because Sam, the grocer, doesn't realize that Patrick's dead, but the reader certainly does. Or I know Dylan has an example where we have, that she's talking to the police about what was kind of going on. The police aren't aware of what's happening, but certainly we are. What are examples? You don't have to read a sentence, but what are examples of irony that you think you would be pulling from? Like, Kara, what were you going to do? What was your example that you were planning on using?
Like the actual sentence.
Yeah.
Oh, I did when she was talking to Sam.
Okay. Since there's a lot of conversation, what sentence did you ultimately go with?
I went with the one where she was like, "Oh, Patrick's decided that he's tired and doesn't want to go home."
Okay. At which point, we certainly know that he is deceased at this point. Jack, what'd you pick?
I was so for my previous one, I chose when she was like when he said that he didn't want to be.
As your first initial one.
Yeah,
Okay.
And then for this one, I used when she killed her.
Okay. So your first one. So your other one would have been him saying to leave, as your first example. Okay. What's a good way that I could start off this sentence? So now that I'm going to include my second example. I could certainly go next. I could, if you want to do secondly or something like that, that would be fine. You could go to follow, furthermore. I'll go furthermore, just because that's something a little bit different. I can go back to Dahl. Uses, now at this point, I think it's pretty safe assumption that folks are going with what type of irony?
Dramatic.
And yeah, it still could be situational, depending upon the example that you use. Kara, how'd you kind of word yours? Furthermore, Dahl uses dramatic irony.
I don't know. Can't really find it.
Well, how would your sentence go? Or how could we if we're going with this quote, Patrick's decided he's tired and doesn't want to eat out tonight, which is second column of page 382. How could I lead into this? Furthermore, Dahl uses dramatic irony. I could use the same word I had before in my previous example.
Brutal.
No. Uses situational irony when. Okay, I could go when. I don't necessarily have to do when he writes, but I could certainly go when Mary, who's she talking to? Tells Sam, quote, and then I could go with my example, Patrick's decided he's tired and doesn't want to eat out tonight. That's understandable. I have a complex sentence. I have my citation, which is a direct quote from the story. Even though it's dialogue, and I'm just putting a number 5 to let us know this is sentence number 5, I only need the regular quotation marks around it. I only have to go with a single or a triple quote when I would be mixing narration and dialogue together. Now what I have to do is I have my simple sentence and I have my compound sentence explaining how this irony leads into that sinister tone that would be taking place. We don't have the reader is surprised, but I could go what? The reader, since it's dramatic, I could emphasize that the reader knows that Patrick is
Deceased.
ooh.
Using the big word, it was brownie points.
I could say while Sam does not. Now you could be going, wait a minute, Mr. Kane, that's a complex sentence. it'd be one where I would say you could make an exception because I want to highlight why it's dramatic irony. I know something that Sam doesn't. So that's why I kind of said, while Sam does not. How does this lead to a sinister tone? Or contribute to a sinister tone?
She's hiding.
Mary is hiding the truth from Sam. Keep writing same. Why is hiding the truth sinister? And I agree that this would be a good thing to take a look at.
Because she's covering up the fact that she murdered him.
So Mary is hiding the truth from Sam. If she were truly sorry for what she had done, that is an ugly sentence that I just wrote. It's not grammatically corrected anyway, but I was just kind of writing ideas down, okay? What could we do to make this grammatically correct? And ideally, a compound sentence. Nate, what's one thing? Because there's a couple things I have to fix.
Add comma right after Sam. Mary's hiding the truth from Sam. Right after that.
Okay, but if she were truly sorry, like that,
Yeah.
for what she had done, then she would admit to the murder. This makes the tone sinister. I still got an issue down here.
Comma.
Technically, I can't put a comma there because I have what's called a comma splice. This makes the tone sinister. I could do a couple things. I could just put a period and make an extra sentence because sometimes you just have to do that.
Then that's like a too short of a sentence and then a problem.
Okay, couple things here. Gavin is correct. I could do a semicolon. A semicolon replaces a fanboys. So it takes two independent clauses and it joins them together. I don't have a fanboys, but because I have a semicolon, I don't have to. Technically, I could go, Mary is hiding the truth from Sam, semicolon, if she were truly sorry for what she had done, then she would admit to the murder. Like, I could do that as well. What Nate mentioned was perfectly fine. Nate, you were mentioning then another thing. You said, which, take out this, which makes the tone sinister. If you were complaining, Brendan, that that's like just too short of a sentence, I think you would like that idea then better. Furthermore, Dahl uses dramatic irony when Mary tells Sam Patrick's society's tired and doesn't want to eat out tonight. The reader knows that Patrick is already deceased while Sam does not. Mary is hiding the truth from Sam, but if she were truly sorry for what she had done, then she would admit to the murder, which makes the tone sinister. I have no problems. I wrote sentences 5, I wrote sentence 6, I wrote sentence 7. That means that I would have 8, 9, and 10 to do with my third example. If I were to stop right here on the rubric, what do you think I get? 0 to 3. If I were to stop right here, according to the rubric, I'd probably get a 2. Because the rubric has the wording in it of the response accurately identifies 2 or 3 separate examples of irony, one situational, one dramatic. Don't stop here going, I think that would be good enough to pass. Couple reasons. You don't know what the other free constructed response questions are going to be. You could have some that are a struggle, where you really have to fight tooth and nail to get a 2. So if you can get a 3, take the 3. You also don't know what you got on the multiple choice questions. Certainly you would want to be confident that you did well, but you don't know until that score comes out, so you want to maximize as much as you can. What I'm hoping at least you can tell is there would be a structure, a formula that you can follow if you remember RACE. Restate answer in 1 sentence, cite and explain in 3. Cite and explain in 3 more, cite and explain in 3 more. The nice thing is anytime we do a constructed response, this is the structure that we will follow. The expectation is always that a constructed response will be 10 sentences. We don't change it to 12 or 15. Keep this in your handout section. It's not homework. But keep this in your handout section so that you have a good working template to use next time we end up doing one of these, which won't be too far away. Hope you have a good break. Enjoy your 6 days. Julia, don't forget that.
Yeah.
6 days, 4 days including.
Weekend.